One of the bands we didn't get to explore in Metal Evolution was Montrose, even though we know that they influenced a ton of heavy bands. So when I traveled to Southern California to visit the compound of lead singer Sammy Hagar, I wanted to talk to him not just about Van Halen, but about the cult classic debut Montrose album that they recorded with Ted Templeman. And we never got the chance to show you this part of the conversation. And check out the energy of this guy. Can you believe that he's in his 60s? Okay, Sammy Hagar, take one.
Ouch!
It's a terrible start. Take me back to that first Montrose record and tell me, what do you think was important or unique about the sound on that record?
Well, Montrose, first of all, was the first time I was ever in a recording studio, and I'm in there with Ted Templeman, first-class Grammy Award-winning producer at the time, probably. And Ronnie had been, done it with Boz Scaggs. He played with Van Morrison. He had played with Edgar Winter Group. He'd just come out of that. So, he was kind of a veteran, too. Bill Church, same thing, played with all the same people. And so I was like really the new guy on the block, so I was just in awe of the whole thing, and I was a wreck the whole time. For instance, on Bad Motor Scooter, I had an impacted molar that I couldn't close my mouth, and I went and got put to sleep, pulled the tooth, came back in the studio and sang Bad Motor Scooter with a big chunk of gauze in my voice. Today, I wouldn't go near it. I'd say, I'm off for a week behind this, but that's how driven and how intimidated I was by everything. Whatever you want. So for Montrose, for me, it was really like I didn't even know what we were doing. I was just giving it my heart and soul. I had written these songs. Ronnie was playing it in a very heavy metal style. I didn't come from a heavy metal background at that stage. I was a blues R&B guy. I was singing Otis Redding songs, Wilson Pickett, Tower of Power in a cover band, and doing the best rock we'd do would be like the Stones or the Who, and the Stones were a blues band too, So I was came from that. And when I started singing against the way Ronnie was playing guitar, I think that's what created the Montrose sound. It was, I had this bluesy voice and was using all blues chops and playing blues riffs, writing songs like Make It Last and Rock Candy and those kind of songs. Those are blues riffs, And Ronnie didn't come from the blues. He came from almost more country, and then he just wanted to play really loud through a Marshall. And I don't know, Denny Carmassi, the drummer, he had a heavy foot. He was a John Bonham freak. None of the rest of us were really into Led Zeppelin that much. I dug them, but we weren't I wasn't a Led Zeppelin freak at that time, So I think there's what made Montrose unique was it was heavy. Ted Templeman's sound, he made us a metal band with the sound. Ronnie had 11 guitar overdubs on Rock the Nation, for God's sakes, and it sounds like just one. So it was just a wall of sound, and it was just kind of unique chemistry between the four of us that kind of made that sound.
Very cool. And vocally, what were you doing vocally that was different on that record than the R&B stuff that you had done before?
Well, there were two things vocally that made my voice the way it was. Number one, I was just a young kid, and I had a high, screechy voice. And because I came from a club situation where we didn't even have monitors. I was singing always pushing really hard because I couldn't hear myself. So I would sing in a high register to at least so I could get over the top of the instruments. And I came from that school. And then trying to sing like sound like an 80-year-old black guy, trying to sound like I was Howlin' Wolf or somebody, and here I'm this 20-year-old kid. So I really pushed my voice to get it to be raspy. And because I didn't want to use a fake voice, a lot of guys just used fake voices, they'd go, So I wanted to be a good singer, but I pushed myself really hard. Then when I got in Montrose, we were so loud. The first thing Ted Templeman said was, "Oh, great, man, you got a voice that can, cut through all that, that volume," because I was singing in that high register. So everyone pushed me into that register. And that's how I sing the way I sing today. Every time. I used to always play guitar and sing, and then I joined Montrose, and I was just the singer. So I didn't even know what key songs were in. I would have written a song, Ronnie would work it up, and then I don't know what key he was doing in, and I just sing whatever I felt in my heart. And 90% of the time, it was at the peak of my range. And I used to always get on tour, and after about 100 shows in a year, I'd go, why in the hell, am I singing in this register? It's like it really is hard. It's hard on your stomach, your back, your neck, your balls. So I just was always in that supersonic range, and everyone liked it, so I just kept doing it.
How were you guys different than what was going on around you at that time?
Well, Montrose was different than everything because we were half glitter rock, half punk rock, half metal and R&B. I mean, we were such a, Ronnie was like a punk before punk was happening, He had an attitude. He didn't want to talk to the audience. He wanted to spit on the audience and get in their face, and be just, and I was coming from an R&B place, and so it was like, really, we didn't fit in almost anywhere. We got booed off the stage sometimes. Like we would open for a band, Little Feat at that time in Europe. They were real big in Amsterdam, and we were on tour, and they were opening for us in Germany and in England and France and our big countries. And then we go there, and we got booed off the stage after the third song. I mean, we opened for a lot of people and didn't even get an applause. We played 35 minutes of hell loud and just high energy, and stopped, and it was over, But little by little, we became like a cult band, to where a lot of bands today, Van Halen and the band The Cult in Boston, Tom Scholz, first time I met him, first Montrose album, it's the Bible. Everybody say, oh, it's the Bible, so I'm going, great to be part of that. But at the time, we didn't know what we were doing. And Ronnie was so insecure that he told us on the making of the second record, we're too late in this whole game. Yeah. We have to change, otherwise we're not going to make it. Right. Metal is over. This is what he was saying. Hard rock, loud music is done. We barely made it under the wire, but I don't want to go on. So he fired me, and he fired everybody. He started trying to change because he thought metal was over. Right. And then a few years later, here comes Van Halen and Poison and Motley Crue and everybody else that were just complete. The same thing we were doing and makes it big, and we never made it.
Last thing I want to ask you is, why is heavy music important to people, do you think? Like, why is it important to you? Why is it important to people who are in the audience experiencing it? Why is it important to people who are playing it? I don't know if you have a kind of a thought on its importance to people.
I don't know. There's a certain kind of kid that digs heavy metal music. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You can see it, the way they dress, long hair. It's a rebellion. I think it's a little bit of an outcast. You don't feel like you're the best-looking guy in the classroom. You're not the hottest chick in the classroom, or you're not the richest kid in the class. It's all those things. I think it's really a blue-collar thing, and it's kind of like that's when you come out of that, like a blue-collar working-class environment. Those are the guys that are playing that kind of music, like guys like me. I wasn't a rich kid, so I'm playing that kind of music. So you relate to them, and when they, I think part of the way that a kid that's a Camaro driving kid, or whatever, that those guys and those girls, the way they can express themselves best is with a little more aggression. These guys are more apt to get in a fight with you, if you push them around too much, because it's the only way. They're just not into that intellectual of people. Some of them are, but in general, the way they were brought up and stuff is it kind of got a little edge in them, a little held back a little bit. They were brought up to respect things, and then so when they get to put on the guitar and play through that big amp, man, they want to, in order to let their heart and soul out. A heavy metal artist, most of us, we have to have volume. And we have to have big hair at one time, and had to have platform shoes to make us taller. Just that one thing to say, hey, I'm as good as you, Mm-hmm. I really think that heavy rock and heavy loud music, it's got a little bit of the punk. The punks just did it a different way. But I just think it's really a coming out thing. Hey, man, I'm somebody too. And in order to let yourself express yourself, you have to have volume.